Welcome, everyone. I am so excited that you're here for our first Inclusion Matters Education Services webinar on Unleashing Brilliance. My name is Dr. David Palmer, and I am so honored to be able to talk to you about how we can boost your child's success through executive function coaching. I'm coming to you not only as an educator, but as a dad. As you can see behind me, we have 6 of these arrows here represent our 6 children. And then the 2 arrows in the middle, that's me and mom. So we are going to jump right into this webinar because I want you to get the most out of it that you can. There are really 3 main goals that we're after this afternoon. First, for you to understand what executive function skills are and why they are so important, not only to your students' academic life, but also to their life in general. And then I'm going to help you recognize some of the strengths and some of the challenges with executive functioning skills. And then at the end, we'll learn together how to support and improve our children's executive functioning skills through coaching. So without further ado, let's get started. What are executive functions? Well, these are the thinking processes in our brain that help us do lots of different tasks: planning, organizing, prioritizing, regulating our thoughts, regulating our emotions and our actions. And so I like to think of them as the conductor of an orchestra. You have lots of instruments going on in an orchestra, but that conductor is up there in the front, making sure everybody is playing together. And that's what our executive functioning does. It not only helps us to understand what we're supposed to do when we're facing a task, but how should we do it? What skills, what are we going to need to get those tasks accomplished? Now, one of my heroes in executive functioning and ADHD studies is Dr. Russell Barkley. And I came across this quote from one of his many books. He says this: executive functioning is not knowing about things. And so from the get-go, I want you to understand that these executive functioning skills are not a measure of your child's intelligence. In fact, we often see that students are quite bright, but they just have trouble with these skills. What is it about? Using what you know for effective performance in life, whether that's in social situations, whether that is occupational in jobs, or whether that is in school. But that way there is effectiveness going on, taking what you know and being able to use it positively. In fact, Dr. Russell Barkley has also said that the condition of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is really an executive functioning issue. He also says that these executive functions are goal-oriented, meaning that we use them when we set, execute, and complete a goal. And those executive functioning skills are important to getting there. So what are some of these skills? Well, I put 6 here. Some have identified 11. Some have identified more than 60. But let me just give you a quick survey. First, working memory. That's the ability to hold and manipulate information in our minds. For example, if we're doing a math problem and we have to keep certain numbers in our brain in order to complete the problem, we need working memory. Or let's say that we're given a set of instructions, 2, 3, 4 instructions, and we got to hold those instructions in our brain as we do them. That's working memory. Sustained attention is our ability to stay focused and to stay on tasks for long periods of time. Time management, which is right below it, is an important part of sustained attention. Inhibition, the skill to resist impulses and control our emotions and behavior, very important, especially for children and adolescents. Organization, planning, creating the plan, following through with the plan, knowing when to make adjustments in the plan. And those adjustments have to do with another executive functioning skill, flexibility. Again, time management, to estimate and allocate time effectively, and things like emotional regulation, which is the ability to manage and express our emotions appropriately, knowing the right time, the right place, and the right amount of our emotions. And so as you notice here, all of these skills are interrelated. Don't think of them as separate from each other. They are all interrelated. So as you work on building one of these skills, it affects the others. So let's look at an example of what it looks like when we put all of these together. Let's say we have a student that is hard at work on a history project, whether we're a teacher or they come home and they say, hey, I got this history project and I have to research this particular event. I have to prepare this presentation, which I share in front of the class, maybe has slides, those kinds of things. So they are going to need to use their executive function skills in order to meet this 2-week deadline. So I want you to think for a moment, what are the executive function skills that we saw on our last slide, or maybe others that you know about, that would be involved in this scenario? So take a moment, type that into the chat. Okay, I'm seeing here time management. That's a huge one because of this 2-week deadline. Organization, important. Planning, yes. Okay, these are looking good. So yeah, there's a lot of those, even emotional regulation, not getting frustrated, not wanting to give up because it seems like a big task. And so I want you to be thinking throughout this presentation, what are these skills and what do they look like and how are they practically helpful for our students? Now, a lot of times when our students are struggling with their executive functioning skills, we see these common signs and symptoms. We see a lack of focus and attention. So they have a hard time just staying on task. They seem to wander everywhere, or like I do a lot of times, you work for 10 minutes and you feel like you want to get up and you have to walk around, or what was I doing? Disorganization, where you have difficulty organizing various tasks, materials, and planning. A big one, especially again with our children and teenagers, impulsivity, controlling those impulses and being able to hold back to make wise decisions. Things like time blindness. Parents ask me all the time, I don't understand, how is it that my child can spend 5 hours straight on video games, but I can't get them to give 15 minutes to their homework? Well, that has to do with how the brain works and it perceives time. And so students with executive function skill challenges lose track of time. They don't have good time management in their brains. And therefore, they have a hard time knowing how long they've been doing something or how to sequence things. Emotional outbursts and forgetfulness. A lot of times we look at it as you're just so forgetful. Why can't you just remember things? Well, because that strength is not there yet. And so they need to have help and support so that they can unleash that brilliance that is there inside of them. Now, how might this look in a child's academic and personal life? Well, you may see it as a struggle in school and homework. So you may notice they're having difficulty keeping up with assignments. They keep falling farther and farther behind in their work. They can't seem to get themselves organized. And so when things are due, they miss the deadlines, or they have challenges in social interactions. So reading social cues, managing their emotions in social situations, impulse control can oftentimes give them difficulty in making and sustaining healthy friendships. And then low self-esteem and frustration. And this one is the one that really saddens me. When students begin to feel overwhelmed, they begin to feel defeated, even by simple daily tasks. And then unfortunately, sometimes we as adults don't make it any easier for them. Why can't you just remember? I wish you would just sit still. These things that we're saying because we're concerned are not really helpful. So what are some things that are helpful? Well, getting them to strengthen those skills. And so again, I want you to think about these two scenarios. Sarah often forgets to bring home the book she needs for her homework and has a hard time keeping her school materials organized. What skill do you think Sarah needs to strengthen? Okay, go ahead and put that in the chat. Okay, organization. Putting her book in the same place every time so she knows where to find it. Okay, organizing her binder. visual reminders, visual cues, good. All right. And how about scenario 2? James has difficulty staying on task during class and fails to complete his assignments on time. What can we do to help James? Okay. Yeah, sometimes the teacher needs to find out the interests of the student. Okay. Checklists. Okay. Good. And so our task as adults is to identify some of these signs and symptoms so that we can continue to give our kids what they need to strengthen. So one way to do that is through executive function coaching, because coaching is a very effective way to help children develop their executive functioning skills. It helps them in many different ways. Let me share with you some of those ways. One, executive function coaching allows for personalized support and personalized strategies. So we are able to tailor our plans and our goals towards the strengths of that student, what they are able to do well, and then carry that into how we can support and help them with their skill challenges. For example, I just was talking to someone recently about how their son can remember plays for football and basketball, but has a hard time with organization and remembering and making plans for school assignments. And so we can take those strengths and that love of sports and use that to continue to bolster some of those skills in the classroom. We can customize these tools and strategies, so it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. We can empower students to overcome these challenges, again, by using their strengths and thus fostering this independence and this self-advocacy, knowing I can do it on my own and I know when and where I need to go if I need help. And then coaching also helps with this consistent support and accountability. Sometimes, honestly, at home as caregivers, we struggle with this. We know how to help our kids, but just it's not working out. And so sometimes that outside objective coach can be a powerful tool to work with the caregivers and the children in making sure that they're getting the supports and the tools that they need for success. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about the benefits of a body first or bottom up approach. So a lot of times when we come at executive functioning, we think if we can just kind of put these skills into a child's mind, then they'll be able to do it without any problem. Well, I want you to think about brains and brain development for a moment. Our brains develop from the back of our brains to the front. And so we have those parts of our brain that keep us alive right here in the back. If you use the hand-brain model, you have right here the parts that keep us alive, our breathing rate, our heart rate, all of that. And then inside the middle of our brain is our emotional brain. And then around the outside, especially right here in the front in our thinking brain, is where those executive functioning skills happen. Now, those executive functioning skills as part of that prefrontal cortex don't develop in us until we're around 25 years old. So from the get-go, we have to understand that in our children and teens, that part of their brain is continually developing. But also what we have to understand is that thinking part of the brain is really under the control of that emotional and that survival brain. And so if we are having children who are struggling with emotions, anxiety, fears, those kinds of things, those will typically hijack those prefrontal cortex executive functions. And so by using this bottom-up approach, which I implement in my coaching, is full of benefits where it helps the child regulate their nervous system, bring it into balance, and so they can move away from fight, flight, and freeze. So because they're struggling with these executive function challenges, let's say they're going to take a test. Well, that's going to spur on some anxiety, some fear, and the child will most likely fight, flight, or freeze. And so what we want to do in our executive function coaching here at IMES is to use this bottom-up, a body first approach. And so we want to emphasize the importance of not just the mind, but the body as a whole. That's their physical health and well-being. And we know that that's tied into their mental clarity and productivity. And really, there are 4 things that we need to focus on in our executive function coaching. And that is, are you getting enough sleep, enough rest? Are you eating well? Are you moving your body and exercising? And then this 4th one is so important, attachment. Do they feel a sense of connection? Do they feel a sense of safety? And then we can integrate these, the bottom body up approach with the top down executive function skill coaching. And we can see that there is going to be a greater amount of success in achieving their goals. So what does successful coaching look like? Well, assessment and goal setting. One of the first things I do as a coach is I assess, where is the student at? What are their strengths and what are their challenges? And this involves some rating scales with the caregivers, teachers, even the students themselves, but also some observations and interviews, taking all of that important information into consideration, and then figuring out what are some important first goals that we need to set. During coaching sessions, we build the skills by using exercises and learning different strategies and putting them into practice immediately. There are those regular check-ins, and we monitor progress, because one of the most internally motivating things is to know that I'm actually making some progress in this. We celebrate successes, we learn from setbacks. We collaborate with teachers and caregivers and other support systems. And then we see an increased self-efficacy and growth mindset. Self-efficacy is simply this attitude, I can do it. And growth mindset is, I may not be able to do this yet, but with work and all of these other skills, I will be able to do it. And so what is it then that you can take away from this webinar? Well, it's this. At Inclusion Matters Education Services, we offer executive function coaching. And we do this so that we can help support you as the caregiver in being able to support the students around you, or as an educator. These things can be incorporated into the classroom as well. And so if you're interested in learning more about executive functioning, what it is, what the coaching looks like, I want to encourage you to go ahead and reach out to us. And there's a couple ways you can do that. First, you can email us at hello@inclusionmattersed.com and email us and let us know that you're interested in executive function coaching, and we can get you started. Or you can give us a call or reach out to us on Instagram. Our website is that inclusionmattersed.com. So you can go there and find out more about what Inclusion Matters Education Services are all about. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with us in order to learn more about executive functioning skills in this webinar. Again, if you have any other questions or want to know more about what we do at Inclusion Matters Education Services, please feel free to reach out. Well, be well. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.